Hey, experts listeners, I want to key you into something that we do very special here at Ops Experts Club, and that's a masterclass. We have a free masterclass called Foundations That Scale. And the great thing about this masterclass is it's for operation professionals who are growing businesses. One of the most dangerous things you can do as an operator is grow businesses on a foundations that's not stable. So in this particular masterclass, we take apart all of the inside pieces of your team, your tech, and how they're using time. And we make sure that you're building on a foundation that's stable. So if you want to check out a great masterclass completely for free, go to foundationsthatscale.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Terryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
Terryn Turner, how you doing today, Ops Expert?
Good. Yeah, it's a day between Monday and Friday, so it's going well.
Sunshine here in Southern Oregon. I'm just stoked, bro. I've been under rain. I felt like I live where you live. I'm not a Seattleite. Like I want some sunshine sometimes. And today it's going to be 70 is what I hear.
Ouch. It's going to burn.
Pretty much going to put on my bikini and get outside because it is going to be suntan time. It can only last like 5 minutes, but still it's worth it.
Nice. Go shovel some rock.
Seriously, got to do what you got to do, Terryn Turner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So anyway, I thought what we could talk about today for all of you ops experts, thanks for joining us on Ops Experts Club. It's an amazing thing to have you. I thought what we could talk today, Terryn, about was the time-space continuum. And what I thought before you check out and stop listening, this time-space continuum as it relates between a visionary and an operator for businesses. And what I mean is clearly there's a misunderstanding of how time works depending on who you're talking to, because how many meetings you and I have been in, so many meetings where a visionary comes out with a great idea. And before the meeting's up, they're like, okay, so where are we at with that? And we're like, wait a minute. What? The idea you just told me about on this meeting? Let me tell you where I'm at about it. I just heard it. I haven't even wrapped my mind around it. You want to talk about that a little bit? Because it's so fun. We just had it happen today with a client. And I think it's so fun every time it happens because it's so predictable. It's pretty common to a visionary.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's not a great feeling, but it's one of those things where it's consistent. It's one of those problems we come across with different clients where you get to see it and you're like, at least they're consistent. Love working with these people. They all follow the same script. So it's not too surprising to us.
Mondays are always the best ones though, right? Because they've been stewing on it all weekend long. And if they've been good and they've been abiding by the rules that we all try and put into place of don't light your people on fire over the weekends, you're going to get it packed in both barrels on Monday morning with their ideas that they expect you to get done today.
Oh yeah.
So Terryn, I feel like we see it most in the online space, right? The online educator space where we can build out a new idea in a relatively short amount of time. We have some clients where it's like brick and mortars, where it's coffee shops, breweries, places where it's like your idea just can't get rolled out that fast. You know what I mean? It's gonna take a little bit of time to get something like that up and out and on your menu, or like tested out and tried and served in a way that you got to get the news out there. Like it's going to take a little while, but the danger with operations in the online education space, especially is, oh no, I could release that today. Like as fast as I can build a landing page, if I can make a button and take money, like that thing is out there today. Do you feel like we see it most in those kind of spaces in the educator space?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's super easy and we say this all the time, you wake up in the morning with an idea and you're making money by, 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really easy to do that in this online space, digital products, knowledge-based products, anything like that, and we've seen it be done successfully countless times. We've also seen it burn people out really easily.
Burn people out and burn down your brand, right? Because the downside to a quick start, being able to launch something so quickly, is there's been no quality control, right? We haven't thought through implications and downstream and pain points and what's that going to do to your ecosystem. And like, have we thought some of these things through? Is it going to actually cannibalize another offering that you're doing? because we haven't spent the time really vetting this thing and seeing where's this product fit in your ascension ladder? Like, who do you want to say yes? If everybody says yes to it, what's that going to do to some of the other things that other people have said yes to? And does it collateralize something that you offered previously that sounded kind of like this last time when you pitched? And this is just a little bit different. But I think that if you rush something out there, you don't get to battle test any of those things. You don't even get to run it by your team. You just lobbed it out there into the ether. And I mean, we've heard visionaries say it all the time. Hey, before you put a bunch of time into something, test it out there, get it out there, start selling it, see if it's going to sell before you build the whole thing out, because you don't want to waste a bunch of time building something that people aren't going to want. And there's probably some truth to that, but I would say, yeah, but you want to vet it like decently, like probably at least run it by your team before you start making the offer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it still has to be legit, functional, and work correctly. There's not much more you can hold off on other than actually building the product, unless it's not built yet, which is usually where that ends up.
And usually the way we've seen it work out is that the kickoff call isn't for another set of days. So if you can just get it out there and selling it, we can surely build it by the time we're doing a kickoff call to let people into it, And so it's like you're building up anticipation, but even that, like nobody likes the feeling of putting dollars at something they don't get to test drive or get to actually get behind the wheel of as they're purchasing. That's just not a great customer experience. And then
hmm
like I would say 9 times out of 10, you're going to experience some pretty bad breakage, like trying to hustle it out like that, and maybe breakage is either it's not going to work the way you thought it would, or you're going to burn out your team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, it's, kind of like the ideal low, if you're a visionary listening and let's say you do have that full-time operator on your team that's taking those visions from you. I mean,
Yep.
it's what they're thinking through in their mind as you start saying this is what else are we in the middle of working on? What have I asked the team to do already? What have
Right.
they committed to already? Can we get this out in time? Who do we need to hire in order to get this out? Because we might need some extra contractors. All these questions are coming up as you're just, spewing this vision and thinking of the idea. They're thinking of everything in between and what can actually happen. And the beautiful thing happens when people like us go to sleep is we keep thinking about it. And so when we
Right.
wake up, sometimes we're even more clear about it and how to do it. So sometimes just give them that 24 hours to, think through, flesh it out, have it completely unpacked and understood, and you can end up with a lot more success.
I think the reality is that it's like the tale of two cities, right? Like it's like you could not be more polar opposite visionary from your operator and operator from your visionary. Like literally, you guys are speaking two different languages. And I think it's really important as you come to what's going to make my business successful. A lot of times it requires that visionary drive. It requires that visionary, like getting out there and breaking the waves and coming up with the new ideas. I think you said that last week on Ops Experts, or maybe the week before that, of like, we need these people,
hmm
right? To be the ones that are knocking down the work for all of us to stay busy, who are doing the operational lift behind them. But I think that it's really important if you can learn to honor each other and value each other and respect the difference and realize that it's kind of like a relationship, like the 5 love languages, and understanding like what love language your other speaks, for the sake of like speaking to them in a way that they understand love. In some way, visionary operators speak is like that, because I think usually as an operator, I'm like, I need to find all the facts. I need to find all the details. I got to pull this whole thing apart. I'm going to collateralize all these. And we like come up with all this intel, all this data. Visionaries typically are a quick start, right? So they register on the Colby test, right? They're going to register high on quick start, but low on follow through, low on fact finding. Yeah. I mean, like that's just how it's going to work for a visionary. And usually if you're hiring an operator, you want the exact opposite. You want somebody that's high on fact finder, high on
hmm
follow through, low with quick start. You know what I mean? So that they can complement each other like a puzzle piece fitting together. So then I think it comes down to what's the way that we need to speak to each other to get the best yield? Because Terryn, you and I have also sat on meetings. We were on a meeting this morning where you could just watch like the color just like drain out of the face of the visionary as we started going through some of the operational objections to his new idea. And man, he was so excited to bring us this new idea, and he wanted us to be so excited with him. But we were like to pump the brakes. And I think it's good for the operator to realize the visionary, they expect you to just be the no guy. Like, this guy
hmm
always quenches all my fun. This guy always tells me no. So then they come into it and they give you kind of a version of it that they've already tried to master their pitch of how they're going to win you over on it, anticipating that you're going to tell them no. So I think it's really important to get down to, who am I talking to? And how do I have the right conversation with the person I'm talking to about it?
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned, clearly knowing how visionaries operate is a good first step.
Hmm.
Oh. And the pull between visionaries and integrators and how you're supposed to be two separate people. And, if you're too similar, it's not a good mix. And you're supposed to be different. And your brains are supposed to go in different directions in the same conversation. And just understanding that that conflict there is to help things go well and to be
Yeah.
built up correctly and successfully.
I think that, I mean, Gino, in his condensed book on traction called Rocket Fuel, I think that's what he's talking about, right? Is like the two materials come together is what makes it combustible. That's what makes it like give you all of the motion forward. Any one without the other, like epoxy, right? You need two materials to come together to create the bond, anything like that. Realizing that one without the other is going to have a problem, So the visionary could have visionary for days, vision for days. But when it comes to operation, he can get it to first base, but the whole thing's going to keep falling apart on the backside of that because he doesn't have stick to itness. She doesn't have stick to itness. But the operator a lot of times can slog in details for way too long because they don't have necessarily that quick start that's going to push them with initiative to continue to think about other new ideas, other ways they should go. So the two together really complement each other. But I think a lot of that is okay. So as I come to this conversation, let's say I'm a visionary in this scenario. All weekend long, I've been stewing on ideas. All weekend long, I've been excited to talk about this new thing I've got. What's the best way for me to bring that to a meeting? And then what are my expectations on the backside of this? Because I promise you, you don't just want a team that's like, yes, 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 we'll do. Because the problem is that that's not real. Like that may be what you want, but that's not realistic. And honestly, if they're giving you a bunch of yeses, unless you have a very large team that has a very low amount of things that they're doing for you at current, that's probably not real either. That probably means they're going to neglect something else that you told them was really important to you yesterday and last week and the day before that. I think just realizing that there's a priority of importance and getting into a cadence of, okay, hey, I've got this really great idea. I'd like to run it all, but I'd like to run it by you. And I'd like for you guys to chew on it and come back to me and let's battle test it and bring it back tomorrow. Just like you said, Terrence, let them sleep on it for a
hmm
night and think about it and then bring it back to you. And then as an operator, as you're thinking about it, what do you bring back to the visionary? I know I loved our conversation this morning between operator and visionary, and the visionary just broke it down really, really clear. He goes, no long sentences. I don't want paragraphs, bullet
hmm
points, short sentences. And I think realize who you're talking to. This is shiny object syndrome 101, right? These guys, they don't read long content. They love short form. They love bulleted out. They love reels, right? They love things that are moving quick, and I think that thinking through to yourself, what's the most important details I need to bring to the surface of this conversation to get the yield that I want? So for both of you to really ask yourself, who am I talking to and how do I get what I want?
Yeah. And creating just a really simple process to work through these new ideas. And it can look a little bit different depending on how big you are, how structured you are, how new you are, how small you are. It just some key points to be like, all right, if you do, or if you are telling your leadership team, each person has a department,
Yep.
just giving them things like, think through your department. Do you have all the right people you need to make this happen? What's currently on your plate? And when would you be able to make this happen based on what's on your plate? If we needed to move that up, what could you push back on your plate and what you can't push back on your plate? And then what do you think can break? Those are all great, just things they can look at for 24 hours and come back with. Pretty simple thing to think about in 20 minutes. And either depending on how the visionary likes to work, they give that to the operator and the operator puts it together in a way that, the visionary wants to see it, or they all come together in a quick huddle, share their concerns, almost like a pre-launch meeting, and then they can get to it from there.
Yeah. I love that. I think too, just like really simple broad strokes. So Taryn brought up a great point. Like, how do you bring the facts, right? How do you bring the facts back to your vision in a way that's palatable and you can consume it? I would note this too, though, is try and match their energy. Like when they're excited about something, it's okay. Be excited about them with it. Dude, that sounds good. I love Taryn. I feel like this is one of the phrases you always coin. You're like, that's a great idea. I have this one concern or whatever. I mean, like match their excitement. Don't be like the killjoy where they're like, dude, I'm so excited about this. And you're like shaking your head the whole time that they're communicating it, or they're just anticipating they're going to have to push back on you. And depending on personalities, a lot of visionaries can rattle hot pretty quick, right? They get frustrated pretty quick. That can be part of the personality as well. Like you're pissing them off as you're pushing back on them, which is going to lead to like a non-symbiotic relationship over time, right? Because You're going to always be frustrated. They're going to always be frustrated. But if you can come and say, dude, that's an amazing idea. Like, I think that's awesome. I really like it. I have some things that, can I just ask you some questions? Can I push and pull on that a little bit with you? How do you feel like it relates to this? And this is where you've got to be careful. Like, make sure you play your strongest cards first, right? Don't throw out some half-baked this or that, things that visionaries don't care about. A lot of times visionaries don't always care about how it's going to collateralize other things they've rolled out in the past. They're like, no, it's fine. I've given them so much value in those other things. No, they're going to understand, but they don't, because they don't want to look that in the face. So I would always be careful of collateralizing it with like smaller trigger things and more trigger it with cost. Visionaries understand cost speak really well, So
Mm,
it's like, okay, hey, I love this new idea. It sounds like there's a great ROI that's going to be attached to that. I have some concerns about costs here. Here's where we're at with these people. And yeah, we can push these people harder, maybe. We're going to probably have to pay them overtime, or we're going to probably have to bring on another contractor to help with this part of the lift. If these other things are still important, are these other things still important? And maybe this, as you as an operator, is your eject button. Maybe you haven't wanted to be doing these other things that he's been asking you to do. So this is your opportunity to fall and push eject on some of that other stuff. Hey, you had said last week, this is really important. This is really important. Are you okay if I cut those things off and reappropriate the energies here? Like some of the push and pull on it, but I do think some of your job really is that safety net for the visionary, because they probably have failed quite a bit. They've probably burned out a lot of teams. They've probably burned through a lot of resources by the time you're getting to them if they're successful. And they don't want to keep making that mistake. So the reason they hired you was to help them think through the side of things. So don't like neglect something that you're good at it, but at the same time, make sure you're speaking the right way. Make sure you're focusing on the right things. Don't go on some diatribe about something that's not going to be important to them. Like really identify who's your avatar? Who am I talking to? What am I trying to communicate? What am I trying to get out of the backside? And I think just like Terrence said, you on the backside is you want to manage your team well, because if your team all gets burned out and ejected on you, then you're going to be left holding the bag. So
mhm,
it's this really delicate balance of you want to keep the energy of the visionary, but you want to keep realistic too. Otherwise, you're going to end up burning out yourself or burning out your team.
mhm. Yeah. And I know it's something a lot of visionaries will say is like, oh, these are just excuses. Like, why can't we just say something and get it done? But, us on the other end of it, in your team and the people who work for you and with you and help fulfill your vision, we get the best value and we get to do what we do best.
Yep.
So like when we go into something half-assing it, we don't feel good about it. And
Yep.
so it's not about pushing back or making excuses. It's about how can you set them up to do the best they can do so then they feel good about the work they did, rather than every time we rush through something, you go to bed, you're thinking of things you missed, you wake up, there's things that broke, you just feel terrible about what you did. If
Yeah.
you can take that time to execute perfectly, then everybody on the team wins.
Well, I think too, right? It's never cost you less than when it's still in ideation mode. It's never cost you less
Hmm.
than when we're still thinking about it. Like the most dangerous thing you can do from my perspective is we throw something out there that could collateralize your brand, and come back and bring back negative talk on the internet about your brand that could collateralize you monetarily. You start running ads to something before it's fully baked out. And then you feel the fallout of like, you weren't built for this yet. Like I know we rolled out something for a client a couple weeks back that it just didn't perform the way that he had hoped it would. But I think it was because we didn't spend enough time really battle checking the back end of it to make sure it was going to, are we going after the right avatar? Is the language right? But the push was, let's get it out there, let's get it out there, let's get it out there, which Taryn, you and I we've watched that happen dozens of times. You know what I mean? Where
Hmm.
like visionary is so sure this is going to be his next $1 million idea, but then we rushed it and we got it out there too quick instead of if we had just spent a little longer battle testing that. I think we could have knocked down those objections before we went public with them. And now it's cost us a lot more in ads and it's cost us a lot more on team and it's cost us in the neglect of other things that maybe would have been a better idea because we had spent more time thinking about them, but instead Visionary's excited about the new idea. So he or she pushes it out and then it collateralizes other things. So I think as much as you can try and communicate to Visionary, hey, we only want you to win. We only want to win. We don't
Hmm.
have any other agenda here. Like all of us only stay busy if you win, but none of us like feeling busy with like chasing our tail. Like nobody likes to
Hmm.
feel good about, how many live events have we thrown, Taryn, where the the cart just did not perform as well as we had hoped it would by the end. And I think a lot of that was the pitch was rushed. We didn't think through the product. We didn't think through the collateralization. And I say we being generous. Visionary didn't think through the product. Visionary didn't think through how it was going to collateralize. Visionary a lot of times didn't even spend a whole lot of time on the pitch because they were so excited about the pitch, only to get there and watch the pitch fall flat. And then you put all this money into this live event that now it's just not bringing back the yield. And then Visionary's frustrated and sometimes can deflect that onto team. And that's not fair. Like it's
Mhm.
not fair for it to go that way if we just spend a little more time. And there's a balance, right? We can't spend so much time that we lose the interest of the visionary, but we can't spend so little time that, we end up putting out a half-baked product.
Mhm. Yep. Yep, exactly. And the easiest thing we can do is just respond with, all right, what can I stop doing? That's usually where we'll start. If it truly is like, this needs to happen now. It's just best thing you can throw out there is, what do you want me to stop doing?
Which is why I love rock sheets. I know that not everybody uses them. Man, I would advocate for EOS level 10 rock sheets because I feel like that way you can pull up the rock sheet, show where everybody's time is being collateralized based on important things that all came out of last quarterly planning that we did with Visionary. And you can say, hey, so this is where the majority of team time is being spent right now. Which one of these things do you want me to unplug? And like at that point, then they've made the decision and they can live it up to them. Now I know that pure US would say you don't touch rocks once they've been built, but at times, like there are those times where they need to see an inventory because they forgot 9 out of those 10 things. They're not thinking about 9 out of those 10 things anymore. So like showing them again and making them really help you decide where are we going to create space on. I don't know what you think about this, Terryn, and I know we only have a couple minutes left. What are your thoughts on some visionaries? I've heard them say, I just want to create a SWAT team. Let's just create a SWAT team that I can just call on when I want to get stuff done. Because I don't want to affect, you're right. I don't want to burn out the rest of the team. Let's just create a SWAT team that can just do stuff. What they're saying is they're looking for a team they can sidestep. They can sidestep the slowdown. What do you think about something
Mhm.
like that? Do you think
Yeah.
that's real? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the core, it's basically what your leadership team should be doing too, is they know the players in their departments and they're also that between operator and teams.
Yeah. So I think like I've often thought, there are those teams that are built for the day-to-day operational stuff, but maybe if your visionary is always operating like this, maybe talking to them about, hey, let's create a sideline team that maybe is able to take on quick jobs like this that you want done. If you want it done fast, and you're willing to pay a little bit extra for that, let's build out a team for that. And then you've got a team that's just like keeping the whole ship moving, right? There's big ships turn slow, right? So to
Mhm.
try and with a big ship like a jet boat is probably not going to work that well. So like let there be a standard team that's carrying the majority of the load and then a SWAT team that's able to jump in and maybe attack some things for you quick to give you that dopamine hit that you need of seeing your stuff get out there. A lot of times it's just marketing front end, right? Like what they need from the marketing front end and then what needs to be built behind it. But then we can backfill based upon the build. So
Either a SWAT team or a continuum transfunctioner.
time space continuum, Terryn, great Scott. Woo! Like it all works together.
You
That's
did
what
it.
I found. I worked it in. I told you I would. $5. All righty, guys. Thank you, ops experts, for tuning in today for our talk about the time space continuum, ops versus visionary, and how we can work together. We'll see you next week
Yes.
here on Ops Experts Club. Thank you, Masterful Terryn Turner. So good to have you today.
You too, Aaron. We'll see you around.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.